Damon?
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
really
they're
glad they
still-
came on board.
They're
Yeah.
incredible. They just had their second baby.
Oh,
And they were just here talking. She was changing the diaper, and the little boy was playing on the swing set, and she was like, "We totally remember Ellen." We were like, it was like 5 weeks in, and then she announced she was leaving in the sermon.
I know. They're like great.
Like, what have we done? She was perfect. They asked her to be on a search committee, and
Great.
they're awesome.
They're awesome.
They push back on the assumptions about millennials in the church, which I think is amazing because they're like always here.
Yeah,
They
they were
always-
when
they
they
need to do everything.
when they first started coming, they were like really on top of things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Even. So I was always like, you guys came at like the perfect time for this
Yeah.
church. Yeah.
How old was Alice when you were here?
Anna was
No, Alice, your daughter.
my daughter Anna. That's her name.
Who's Alice?
I don't know.
I thought it was Alice. Anna.
Okay,
So it is
Anna.
Anna. Okay, sorry.
Anna, well, she was 6 months.
Make sure I call her Anna. Six
Mhm.
months, so she was a baby. Oh, so Sue had the same kind of
Mhm.
phenomenon where her baby was really young. Maybe her baby's name's Alice. Wow. Did you have? Well, I'll save it for the.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Fantastic. You're not nervous, are you?
No, not really. I'm just gonna be myself.
Good. That's right. That's perfect.
Okay.
Do you mind saying who you are, and when you were vicar here?
Yes. I am the Reverend Ellen Ekavog, and I was vicar of Grace New Lenox from 2010 until about February of 2016.
Excellent. How did you arrive at Grace? So, like, what was the call or the search like? How did Grace get on your radar?
Do you really want me to talk about that?
Yeah, really.
Um,
And we'll cut it out if it's like inappropriate.
okay, well, so Grace had gone through a very difficult time with their previous vicar, and, they had lost some people, and there was a lot of pain in the congregation, and I had arrived in the diocese, and the diocese thought this might be a church that Ellen could do some good at, and they might like her. And so we met at an Italian restaurant, whose name I cannot remember. Papa Joe's or something like that. Papa Joe's down here. And let's see, who was there? I think there was the Swales were there. Debbie was there. I should remember more people. I know Karen was there. Margot was there. There were some other people as well. And they, interviewed me, so to speak. And I think what drew me to Grace was the fact that everyone was willing to talk about the hurt that they had just experienced. And they did talk about it, and there were some tears, I remember, around that table. And I thought, yeah, this is something, if they were like, no, nothing's happened, everything's fine, that would have been a lot tougher to go into a church like that. They were open and listening. And I think it felt like, people really valued and honored their own spiritual journey and all that too, and what that did for them. So that impressed upon me. And it was actually another church, I was in the midst of interviewing in another church, and I just thought, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. So I didn't even write my papers or whatever I was supposed to write for that other church. So that's how I ended up here, yes. And I started out as part-time because we had a real financial issue going on. So I started as part-time, then the next year was 3/4 time, and then the third year was when we went full-time. So we built it back up.
Can you, while you're mentioning the finances, also too, if I look like I'm not interested, it's because I have to be quiet.
Okay.
So I'm just like, can you talk a little bit about, I'm trying to think about what's going on in the world at the time. When you started, it was a little bit of time after the financial crisis.
Yeah.
So is that a big issue here?
Not really. I mean, I didn't experience that
Yeah.
it that
So
way. It was
really
just
it's-
us rebuilding and trying to find our identity again and value of being grace, essentially. So that's what we were focused on.
Could you talk a little bit about, and forgive me if I'm mistaken, but my understanding is that you were, part of the reason the diocese brought you here too was, and Emmanuel, was that you're good in kind of crisis management. Is that right?
No, well, we moved up here for my husband's work. And I stayed home with Anna for 6 months. And then I let the diocese know I was actually here. And I said, I think I have a gift for conflicted congregations. And so that's why Grace came on the radar. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Where did the gift come from?
I have no idea. My family of origin, I don't know. But, I feel like I can help congregations that have experienced some kind of trauma, kind of heal and try to move on from that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we gotta be careful. Someone think
Yeah.
Emmanuel's watching going, wait, are we in trauma?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
They should know.
What were you kind of said this a little bit, but can you say a little more about your impressions of the church when you were interviewing or kind of considering accepting? It could be the people or just the place, the town.
Well, it just, I came from a small, before we lived here, we lived in Paducah, Kentucky. So this was sort of kind of the same kind of small town feel, which I think I was very comfortable with. And the sanctuary was so wonderfully, it was just a great space. I mean, you could really be with each other, in the space. And I was immediately comfortable here. Yeah.
When they, I asked Sue this question too, but there's a few what I call like kind of kooky traditions that they have here. Do you remember any one is doing the birthday prayers and the
The birthday prayers and the traveling prayers.
Right?
Yes.
So do you have any memories of those or?
Yeah, I remember I always forgot. And so someone had to remind me. That I clearly remember. And I actually really liked
I'm sorry, could you state the question?
Oh, sorry,
Repeat
yes.
that so people know what you forgot.
Yeah, so I feel like, one of the kooky traditions is the birthday prayer and the traveling prayer. And I remember I always forgot. And so someone would have to yell out in the middle of the announcements. But I always loved the traveling. The traveling prayer was always fun because I felt like, take us with you. Because usually it was someplace fabulous people were going. And I kind of was able to keep tabs on everybody. Like, you knew why so-and-so wasn't in church. Like, they're in Florida, or they're in the Bahamas, or wherever they are.
Somewhere else.
Hawaii, the Russells. Kathy, the Russells go to Hawaii. And they always come in their flip-flops, I remember,
Still did, until recently. Let me take a pause. Do you hear that beeping?
Yeah, it's the fire
It's
alarm.
you want me to reset it?
Oh, yeah.
I knew exactly what it was.
You know exactly what it is, right? I don't know if I know how to do it, but let me see.
There's a silence button on it. Do you want me to show you?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
We'll take 5 real quick.
Okay.
Do you hear it now, Conrad?
Oh, I heard it before. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
You're picking it up.
Sometimes the fire department will show up.
Goofy traditions,
Yeah, let me
right?
think of traditions.
You didn't have to deal with the flags. That predated you.
I mean, we still had to deal with them, but we didn't move them.
Right.
Ham dinner.
Yeah.
We didn't do the
What
ham
do you
dinner.
talk about the ham dinner?
Did you do anything like lobster boil, barbecue?
Well, we did the barbecue.
Yeah. Was that a first for you?
That was a first, though. It wasn't a tradition. Mimosas after Easter.
Oh, that's good.
I think I instituted that.
Oh, you could talk about the Easter brunch too. 'Cause that's
So at the
off-
Easter brunch,
off the hook. Are
yeah,
you
the
ready?
Pardon?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so at the Easter brunch, we instituted the mimosa, and where usually Steve or Sue Snyder knew to wait for me at the bottom of the stairs with my post-Easter mimosa, which I was always very appreciative of.
Fantastic.
Um,
So while you were here, there was a lot of building updates, a lot of
Yes.
changes. Let me just rattle off a few, and you may know more than me. Start with the interior of the sanctuary, because I know that got updated a lot over here.
Yeah, so there was this entire thing for the update of the sanctuary. So the sanctuary, we decided to sort of, I don't remember what was the causing issue, but we were worried about the floor. The floor was creaking, and especially around the altar, it felt like at any moment I would just from behind the altar. And so we decided, well, let's really take a look at things. And I remember we were sort of all gathered around, and we pulled up a corner of the carpet, and we realized, like, this is all original, like, hardwood floor. Like, this old house kind of, and so we just sort of went for that. And they were able to find kind of old boards and sort of replace things up around there, so you didn't feel like you were going to fall through the floor, nor get vertigo as you were trying to walk from the altar to the altar rail. So that was, we painted inside. I think we painted up here. We varnished. We got new lights. We just made all the wood kind of the same. What else did we do? We did so much. I don't remember all the little details.
Carpet was a big thing.
The carpet was gone. This was put in just so no one would slip during the winter. We brightened it up. I don't even remember how it looked before, really. Yeah. It was simple, but we were trying to restore it to sort of its original, because we had the original floor, so it's like kind of a reclaiming of the original feel of this country church, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I remember Aaron Gardella. Was it Aaron Gardella who found this awesome carpet that's here under the piano? That's like perfect, weirdly perfect for that space. And we all just kind of pitched in. I mean, we had professionals, but you know, one of the things about Grace New Lenox is that there were some very highly skilled people here with a lot of knowledge. We found cloth wiring throughout the church. That was replaced, so we didn't have to worry about, just going up in flames. We kind of knew if there was ever going to be a fire, the fire department couldn't get here fast enough for it to salvage anything. So we were just kind of trying to make ourselves grounded and more permanent in this space, and also kind of reclaiming who we were in the tradition that we have. So it wasn't just like building for building's sake. I think there was also a spiritual element with sort of everything that we did in terms of buildings and grounds while I was here. And I just really trusted the people who were doing that. And then they would try to explain it to me. And then I'd say, like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. And then so it's like, oh, for interior design, like, Aaron Gardella, where are you? And others who have interior sense abilities. You don't want me doing that. So it was just me just doing a lot of nodding like that. So
I'm the same way. It's crazy. They're all
but I'm so
smart.
happy.
Yeah.
Like, I always knew if there was ever like a flood or anything, Mike Chablowski was like down the street, and I knew I could call him, and often did, like in the morning. He would get calls from me at like 6 a.m. We also had Squirrel Mageddon that happened here. Did you hear about Squirrel Mageddon?
But we
Okay.
had squirrels today, so.
Did you? So a squirrel got in to the church, and we kind of heard it scurrying around it, but it would hide on Sundays so you didn't see it. But we knew it was maybe here somewhere, and we were doing a collection for somebody. We were for an outreach, and Megan came up here. I was not in the building, but this is the story I remember. Megan came up here, and she went to get the cans or whatever out of the collection, and the squirrel jumped up at her face and then ran down the stairs. And that is when we called Mr. Chalowski, who then set up the squirrel traps. And I just remember during Squirrel Mageddon, anytime I walked in, I was always afraid I was going to find a squirrel in that trap. And I'd be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with the squirrel. I'm not a nature person, but thankfully, people can control it. People have some skills, gifts and skills around that. So, but the squirrel ended up leaving, so we called it Squirrel Mageddon. So that was quite a happening that happened.
I have heard that story because Megan was talking about the squirrel jumping out at her. So.
Yeah, She didn't call it Squirrelmageddon.
She called it Squirrel.
She needed to call it
Maybe it's too
Squirrel.
painful.
Yeah.
Let me just throw out a couple parishioners' names while we're on this topic and just see if anything comes to
Okay.
mind. Dave Warner.
Oh, Dave Warner. Dave Warner has a lot of knowledge and gifts and skills about a lot of things. And he is good about detail and research, but I also find Dave Warner also, he's very comforting, because I think he was doing buildings and grounds towards the end of my tenure, and I always remember, like, is this going to be okay? And he always gave me the sense, like, yes, Ellen, it will be okay. And then I was like, Dave Warner, I trust you about this issue.
How about Dave Poole?
Dave Poole.
So he's my Mike because he's down the street. I also have called him occasionally.
Yeah, well, David Poole is silent but strong, steady force in this congregation, and whenever he speaks, everyone listens to David Poole. He is married to Miss Debbie Poole, who I forced to be treasurer when I was first here, and she actually tells this, I think she tell you that? She tells a story about how I asked her to be treasurer and she doesn't even balance her own checkbook. But she was the most meticulous, on top of it, treasurer, almost to like, Debbie, please breathe, that I've ever worked with. She took the treasurer's course, and Debbie also would often clean my office. Well, not clean. I would say pick up and organize my office when I wasn't there, so that when I walked in sometimes, I was trying to find something. I thought, Debbie Poole's been here. So, and actually I kind of appreciated it, so it wasn't that big a deal for me because as most people knew, my office was kind of a mess during my time here. Things were kind of like thrown everywhere and, you know, it was like controlled chaos, sort of.
It reminds me that Debbie was, she was just hanging out during the week. She's not treasurer anymore, but she was just giving advice or something, and she kept staring past me, and I was like, what are you looking at? And she's like, your lamp is crooked. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. Sorry, I digress. What about, I'll come back to names in a little bit. One thing you are remembered for, so you have to restate this if you can, even using my words, is using props in your sermons.
Okay.
So I'm still trying to live up to that legacy.
Bless you. You don't need to live up to that legacy.
Well,
So one of the legacies is my sermon props, which often failed, actually. They were actually failing props. So the bar is quite low, but yeah, they put up with a lot. People here are very tolerant of sermon props and using the kids in the sermon. And let's see, I dressed Evan up, I think as John the Baptist, maybe more than once. Yeah.
You like that fake beard.
Yeah, we had a lot of costumes that we employed. I actually tried to do like a thing with Legos once that totally failed, and everyone was able to take that in stride. But I feel like the point was made regardless of whether the prop worked or not. It just kept things alive and just brought a little fun and whimsy to the service.
They remember it really fondly, so much so that we put in a lightsaber as one of the props at the installation to just kind of symbolize
Yes.
the sense of humor.
Yes, props are important. Yes.
So when you were doing renovation in here, you were talking about restoring it to its old kind of old glory. Did any of that history ever kind of interest you, or did you reflect on it? It's okay if you say no. We'll keep moving.
Not really.
Okay, good. That's fine. Like I thought this was your opportunity to wax philosophic about Prairie Gothic style.
No,
Okay.
Don't
Never
make me do
mind.
that.
How about what did you think about how the church related to New Lenox, the community, kind of, or this is a kind of funky suburb?
Yeah. Let me think about
Think
that,
about it, yeah.
that for a moment.
And you didn't live here, so you can talk about your choice
Yeah,
not
I
to live
did.
here.
Yeah, I didn't live here. So I did not live in the vicarage because we bought a house before I ever had a job. We came up here for my husband Pear's work. So I didn't live in New Lenox, so that created a bit of a disconnect with the town. But I would say, one of my big connections was the ministerial, the New Lenox ministerial, and doing the crosswalk that we did every year. And one year even with some idea, because it got rather warm, I think, usually during that time, and everyone got kind of bedraggled by the time they passed our property, and so we decided one year to hand out water to everybody. And so if there was sort of a community food pantry or some kind of gathering, or I think for one time during one of the hurricanes, we kind of decided, like, let's just gather a bunch of stuff, and we had some parishioners take it down there. So it was like kind of spontaneous support. Or if someone's, house burned down or whatever sort of was going on, how it touched people. It was a very organic sort of relationship.
They still do that. It's great. Did you all do any outreach while you were here? Like, did you do any mission?
We did with Morning Star Mission.
Morning Star, yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot with
Still
Morning
do
Star
that.
Mission.
It's great.
They had outreach traditions that they did, so that was maintained, I think, during the time I was here. We took the kids to work at Morning Star Mission a couple of times. There was a period in which our members were going very regularly to serve the food, and people would just sign up for certain nights, and that was being organized pretty steadily. Yeah.
So Anna was 6 months old when you came here. How did Sue, your predecessor, had to navigate there were a couple times where her daughter only wanted mommy at certain points, especially while she was serving.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any experiences like that?
So Anna was 6 months when we moved here. Anna is not clingy, and so never wanted her mother, essentially. But I did have to give her the evil eye a couple of times during the service, from where I sat to her pew where she was sitting. And in this space, you cannot subtly give the evil eye. Everyone sees you giving your child the look. And so I think it just made everyone giggle. And she knew she better settle down, whatever was happening in that moment. And often people would comment like, I saw you give her the eye. It's like, yes, she needs to get in line. But Anna really owned this place as her church, which is what I wanted the kids to do, to own. One of my fondest memories of the kids was on Easter morning. We always overfilled, so much so there was standing room only, and all the kids had to come up. So all the kids would leave their parents and come up and sit around where I was sitting, and just kind of like be everywhere. Like they would sit next to me, and then like on the floor, and then they'd like spill over, and I love that.
That's great. Did you do? I'd love to hear more about the kids. There was children's programming here when you were here, right?
We had Godly Play.
And then did you have a philosophy about keeping them in the church?
Yes, yeah.
Say some more about that.
So when I first got here, all the kids seemed to hang out in the nursery, and I wasn't a particular fan. I kind of wanted them in church. And so I sort of made the nursery for babies, essentially, and then forced everyone to be up here. And I liked it. I liked having I thought it's important to have the body of Christ together, of all ages. They needed to be in the church, and that's why prop sermons came in handy. I would entice them with other things, other fun to be had in church. And it did create this thing where the children would kind of come in and out and like use the restroom, but I wanted them to sort of have that feeling of, this is my church. This is my place. An acolyte, and do all of those things.
people don't turn and give them the evil eye. You know?
No,
It's pretty great.
no. In fact, it was never a problem with people being angry about crying babies in this church. And that is a huge value here at Grace New Lenox, which is not true everywhere. And that is one of the most beautiful things about this community, I think.
Now moving into a little more bigger picture. So one thing Sue and I talked about was which I learned from Ian Markham, was the myth of the Episcopal Church in decline. Have you heard Ian talk about that stuff much?
No, I
He
haven't.
wasn't your,
No,
yeah, you had Martha?
I had Martha.
Yeah. So Ian harps on this a lot, that the data that's out there is incorrect because they only measure Sunday worship. They don't talk
Right.
about the life of a church through the week long. So I often refer to that because this church seems to be one that kind of bucks the trend. Like we usually think of the Episcopal Church as like, oh, it's sad, things are closing and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you share the same sentiment, or do you think maybe in the 150 means something more because this whole church has persevered? Am I putting words in your mouth there?
No, I definitely think, I mean, this church has persevered, it's thrived, it's been through difficult times. And they've been able to love each other through difficult times, both personally and communally. And I think even when I left for their search was a very trying time. And any little stories that I get about how they came together really gladden my heart, honestly. But I more kicked people out of the church. It's like the Bridge Club, who were driving me crazy and who were like ruining our building and destroying things and not really paying us anything and taking advantage of us. So I more kicked those communities out of the church. So and celebrated their departure.
We'll put this in the outtakes part.
Yeah, I don't think you need.
Destroyed.
I destroy communities that come into this church.
Well, I mean, we won't use this, I promise, but Lori Hermanson had to ask somebody to leave, and it was very traumatic, but it was the best possible thing because
Yeah.
it just got to a point where it's just not healthy. So.
Yeah, when it becomes
But
unhealthy.
she probably learned that from you.
Yeah, just kick people out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Too gracefully. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how graceful it
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Do you, and this is good, the kind of cheesy question, but do you have any kind of hopes for Grace going forward, or kind of, what you imagine for its future? Where do you think it'll be in another 150 years? That's kind of ridiculous.
Oh, wow. I don't know, the phrase that keeps coming to my mind is they will know us by our love. And that's what I want for Grace, to abound in love for God and for one another, even when it's difficult, even when personalities get in the way, or even when our own stuff gets in our way. I'd want it to thrive. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, slightly funnier questions.
This is going to be fun.
You weren't the first female priest.
No.
You were the second.
Sure.
So did you have, I find this lighthearted, hopefully it's not traumatic for you, but did you have trouble with people trying to figure out what to call you?
No,
Okay, good.
I did not have that problem because
Oh,
I
good.
really liked Vicar Ellen.
Oh, good, okay. So
Yeah.
that wasn't like, do we call you mother, do we call
No,
you
I don't.
reverend?
I just, as long as it wasn't insult, people could call me Vicar Ellen, Reverend Ellen, Pastor Ellen. As long as it wasn't insulting, I would really respond to anything.
This could just be me, and the other two didn't really bite on this, but the hymn Amazing Grace, does that drive you crazy, or do you love it?
I love it. I do.
Did you sing Amazing Grace here a lot?
Yeah, well, not a lot, but there are moments. If you overdo it, then it loses its appeal. Here's the situation. You have to use Amazing Grace lightly, right? So that it has some deep meaning for you when you sing it. Otherwise, it just becomes other words that we hear all the time. Yeah.
What about, I'm just looking at some names here. Were the Whiteheads still going here regularly when you were here?
They weren't regular,
Yeah,
because
okay.
they were living in Phoenix, and
Oh, that's right. Okay. Margot, we talked about. Do you know how many stories about Margot for her?
let me think about Margot. Not really.
That's okay.
I mean, Margot, when I was here, Margot was really hurting, and so we had a lot of stuff like that.
Because of Bridget, yeah.
Yeah, so
Uh,
she needed to chill and
Yeah,
take a break.
yeah. Diane Gerolds? Is that name ring a bell?
Yeah, I don't really have any funny stories about
That's
her.
okay. The others talked about her too.
I do have a funny story about Karen Zeke.
Oh, good. Yeah, she's still here. She's here today.
Okay, so Karen, I was preaching and I looked at Karen Zeke, and she was giving me a look like, I hate every word that you're saying right now. And so I was like, Karen, as I'm preaching, I'm thinking in my mind, Karen Zeke hates this sermon that I'm preaching. And so I was standing at sort of the receiving line, as you do at the end of the service, and I said, Karen, you hated that sermon. Like, I saw it all over her face. And she said, no, I just have RBF, resting bitch face. And I thought, that's a helpful insight for me, Karen Zeke.
I think you had told me that. I forgot about it. Because I got it today too, and I was like, it's just not landing. She's not having it.
It's just RBF.
It's RBF, that's right. Do you have any, I'm trying to make sure people feel included if we start naming names more in the video, but the Hiltons, John and Joan?
Joan Hilton was very instrumental in being at the office. And so was John. They both did so much. I mean, but they are people who work like behind the scenes, where you're never really aware of how much they're doing. And they were always willing to do what I needed to do. And I knew that I had Joan's support, and she was just fun to be around and just a hoot. So, I mean, they're sort of part of those unsung heroes. They just do a lot of background work that needs to get done. Digging holes. I think John did that for the playground that we put in. That was difficult labor. But he knows things. He knows how to do things properly. Yeah.
Okay, we're wrapping up, but I just want to throw out a few more names.
Okay.
Psychowski's Pool Party, does that ring a bell?
Oh yes. The tradition of the pool party is one where you say, my grandparents must have not loved me because they do not have a pool and a slide and other things for me to drive around in. But which was fabulous. I love the Psychowski pool party. My favorite part is watching Debbie Poole go down the slide, by far. Favorite thing. She loves it. It just brings joy to my heart.
We all watched. She did a lot. They redid the slide. It's a bigger slide now. So
They've
pretty crazy.
upgraded.
And I tried to beat her going down there. Now, I missed the opportunity to talk about how the church reacted to Gene Robinson, but thinking of Brenda and Kelly, do you know them?
I married them.
You did marry them, yeah. Was that your first, or was that Grace's first same-sex marriage here?
I have no idea.
think
I didn't
it
look in
was
the
like
thing.
that.
But yes, I did marry them.
Yeah.
It was fabulous.
Can you say more about that?
I don't really remember that much.
Well, I know we have pictures of it, so I'm
Yeah.
looking at this just, even if you just say in one sentence, like
Yeah.
I married Bill's daughter, Brenda, too.
Yep, I married Brenda and Kelly when I was here. It was an awesome wedding, so much fun. Just, I mean, they're girls, everything. They're just awesome people. Yeah.
The girls will always, this is the last person I'll ask you about, but the girls, when they're here, they're always make it a point to make a beeline to say hi to Bernie.
Yes, Bernie.
So, now, Bernie's wife was still with us.
Yes.
Right? Did you do her funeral?
I did do her funeral,
Got
which
it.
was at a
Sure.
Lutheran church not too far from here.
Got it.
What's Bernie's last name?
Nash. Yeah.
Bernie Nash. Just steady, wise. You sit down, you hear his life story, and you just think, how can that be? He holds so much knowledge in his head and is so gracious and lovely. I actually do have one other funny story.
Oh, good. He's still that way.
Yeah, we did a baptismal pool party for Jesus in January at the Bolingbrook indoor pool in Bolingbrook. And which, everybody else gets a baptismal party and a cake, so we thought, we need to do that for Jesus, because it was January and we were all a little down, and so we paired up with St. Benedict's Bolingbrook. But I have to say, the most of the people who came to said pool party were from Grace, where we blessed the waters. Heidi and I did, and we had the whole place to ourselves, which was lovely. But my favorite part was as I'm watching the kids and I look over and like almost all the adults are just chilling in the hot tub. There was just like there was a Grace hot tub that was just happening. That was just something to behold, indeed.
What a good idea for a party. Great.
It was really fun.
Like a hot tub in January?
Yeah, plus they had slides. It was like and now they have holy water over it.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, Heidi and I came up with that little gem.
That's so cool. That's awesome.
It was really
I
funny.
can't think of anything else. Are we missing anything, you think?
I'm trying to think if I have any more funny. I have a lot of funny.
Really funny stories. Do you have anything to say about coffee hour? I always thought coffee hour was kind of
I mean, it was fun.
It's way more than I've ever experienced at a church.
I mean, their goodbye party was legendary.
Oh. Does I drop this?
Okay. So at my last Sunday, Grace gave me the most legendary send-off ever that no one will ever top, which included sombreros, a taco truck, and margarita machines. And it was awesome. And what a way to end my time here at Grace.
And that was February?
I don't.
It's like snowing outside. You all are having margaritas. I love it.
It was great. I loved a good margarita machine. Anytime we could incorporate a margarita machine, even if it didn't need to have alcohol in it, I just loved the idea of pulling. I just thought it would really increase coffee hour attendance if we got one. But no one ever thought that was a good idea when I posed it.
I love it. I hope you don't mind. We just mine you for humor throughout the video. This is great. It's really good. I think that's everything.
Okay.
That's awesome. See,
I hope that was enough. That was enough?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
tons, yeah. It's great. Well,
Alright.
what's great is like we don't know quite how this is going to all come together. We're
Yeah,
now
you're gonna
look at the
edit it.
footage and kind of
Yeah.
see how it looks, but there's enough in there to kind of.
Yeah.
You all won't be the only voices. Like we'll have kind of like a narration
Yeah.
with pictures. But